Hello and welcome to another Movie Boozer virtual pubcast. I'm Ken Ekman and I'm joined by Bill Arsenault,
Hey guys.
Bill Leon,
Hello.
Hawk Ripjaw,
Hello.
and Kevin Bacon.
Is he here?
And Kevin Bacon.
They didn't get Tom Savini to kill him yet?
Not yet.
No, we're doing a Red Letter Media Mr. Plinkett thing.
Yeah,
Oh.
I can't really
Kevin Bacon.
I can't really do a good Plinkett voice. So. But we got.
This is the most disappointing thing since my son.
My other son.
And while my son did eventually kill himself in the bathroom of the gas station. No, he hanged himself. That's what
Yes.
he did. Yeah. He didn't just kill himself. He hanged himself in the bathroom of the gas station.
Yes. I love when he'll forget that Plinkett's supposed to live in New Jersey and make like Milwaukee references.
Yeah, or he'll say like, yeah, he'll make him living like he visits what's that casino town in
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, yeah. Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Oh, Bambi. Yeah, he meets Bambi there.
His cat ran off with all his money too, and then he had to take out a hit on him. I fucked my pussy.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, see ya. Okay.
All right, so we have a couple of movies three movies rather to discuss tonight. We'll start with the relevant one because a week from now is Halloween. So why don't we talk about Halloween or
the Halloween?
The Halloween.
Are we not?
Or Halloween 2.
The Halloween.
It has the same title, right? So is this like a Ghostbusters 2016 situation? We have to call this Halloween 2018?
It's a direct sequel to the first film, ignoring the continuity of everything else.
I get that. I'm just saying, in terms of like, if you were to look at the Halloween franchise on IMDb and you see two movies with the same title.
The official title is Danny McBride's Halloween.
I doubt
really?
that.
No.
Okay, I was about to say, like, that makes it sound like a comedy.
Well, it was written by Danny McBride.
Yeah, I know, but you don't
there's
just
a great
call
deal
it
of comedy in this movie.
Patty Chayefsky's Halloween.
No, but it's interesting that the fact that this movie kind of ignores the continuity of every other movie except for the first one creates, well, we'll talk about it, but it creates an interesting plot hole.
So Halloween, I'll start with a digression just because I need to get this out of the way. So I live in Illinois, and Halloween takes place in Haddonfield, Illinois, which is a non-existent town. But according to every source I've seen, it's supposed to be located in Livingston County, which that was a county that I was near when I was in college, so I'm very familiar with it. And it's painfully obvious in the first Halloween that it's filmed in California, and it's painfully obvious in this movie that it was filmed in the Deep South. I looked it up. It was filmed in the Carolinas, I believe. If I remember.
I don't know if I'd call that the Deep. People call it the Deep South. I don't really consider it. I call it. I don't know. If Carolinas, it's on the more. The
you know
East
what?
Coast.
Okay, if it was North Carolina, it's North Carolina. Okay, I won't count North Carolina as deep. South Carolina, though.
South Carolina is pretty deep. I mean, even though they're East Coast, they're very deep.
They're East Coast deep.
They're deep in it. Yeah.
You are in Gulf Coast deep South.
Yes, despite the fact that it's not the Gulf Coast. they just took it and ran with it.
All right, so it bugs me in movies whenever something is painfully, obviously not shot where it's supposed to take place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if it, I mean, I can usually separate it if I'm not from there, but I can imagine that those people feel the same way. It's sort of like, perfect example, one of the most famous examples for me is North by Northwest, the scene where, the famous cornfields chase where the plane is chasing him down with a machine gun. Supposed to be Illinois or maybe Indiana. It's kind of like in that area. There is no cornfield in Illinois or Indiana that looks that deserty.
Well, for me, since I live in a place that a lot of movies aren't set in, it was painfully obvious to me that Goosebumps movie was not filmed in Delaware at all.
Which is funny. You think Delaware would want to get tax credits? You know,
I don't even think they like thought to film there. They were just like, set it in Delaware. Like,
well, let's shoot it in Canada.
Because for them, it's a one-off joke. Because, Delaware, nothing happens there. So we'll make it, that's part of the joke.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Yeah, except the birth of our nation.
In the
sort of.
The Dungeon Siege movie with Jason Statham was partially shot in Colorado. And I know for a fact there are not any medieval farmer camps in Colorado.
I like how of all of the many movies that have been shot in Colorado, you chose the Dungeon Siege movie.
I just remember there being an open casting call in that movie. When I was in high school or something like that, and I got invited to go audition because Burt Reynolds was going to be there. Burt Reynolds.
Who the fuck is Burt Reynolds?
Burt Reynolds in the saddest version of Burt Reynolds. If you've seen that movie, he just
yeah.
That movie is a special kind of shitty.
What kind of farmer was Jason Statham in that movie? Like,
he was one named Farmer.
Yeah, he was
like his fucking character name is Farmer.
What kind of farmer was he?
I think that is Dungeon Siege, like a character in Dungeon Siege.
What was he growing?
He was growing weed.
He was
growing something, turnips or something, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
He was growing opium seeds.
Oh, okay. He was in Afghanistan.
He was growing his 401k.
Yeah, and then fucking Ray Liotta was in it as some wizard or some shit.
Yeah, he's the bad guy wizard.
Ray Liotta plays a wizard?
That's like bad casting, isn't it?
But it's not like even a wizard. Like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't even have like robes and shit. He's like he's got a suit or something.
Okay, so I just looked up movie shot in Colorado.
He just came to the set in his Goodfellas outfit.
Yeah.
so I just looked at a list of films shot in Colorado, and Wikipedia is wonderful because it puts movies like Dumb and Dumber right alongside movies with titles like The Misled Romance of Cannibal Girl and Incest Boy.
Oh, God.
Right on.
What movie is that?
I have no idea what that is. I'm not clicking it.
I wonder what kind of movie that is.
There's also a movie called Decampitated. Get it? Because camp. And just God bless Wikipedia.
Colorado isn't exactly the bastion of high quality film, apparently.
Well, there are decent. I mean, there are.
Yeah, don't say that. I mean, they've got the Prestige was filmed in Colorado.
Okay, yeah, right. Oh, yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, because the mountain region, right? Okay.
Yeah. Pretty sure War Games with Matthew Broderick because they do film near Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a long digression, but back to Halloween. So
this is getting really good reviews.
It is, and I will. The thoughts that I said when I first got out of the movie, the thoughts that I have are the thoughts I still have, which is, I had fun, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, so I was talking to Will Ashton. What?
It was fleeting fun.
I wouldn't say that.
I mean, I would watch it again. I think there's enough scenes in the movie that are interesting that I would give it another view. But it's to call this movie like, I think the only reason this movie is getting stellar reviews is it's literally the first good Halloween movie since the first Halloween movie.
I wouldn't go that far, but
yeah.
I was messaging Will Ashton after the movie, and he had the exact same thought as I did when he saw it last week, where at the end I was just like, oh, that's it? It's kind of like this. My biggest problem with this movie is that despite being very, very well made, I think it's a little bit too predictable, and it's kind of being billed as the culmination of 40 years of John Carpenter horror and this slasher legend. But by the halfway point in the movie, it's pretty much just a standard slasher movie and doesn't really expound on the themes of the genre in any way.
So, yeah, first of all, I will say the one thing I think the movie did well, what I liked, was the amazing contrast between these hilarious little dialogue sequences and then Mike Myers just coming in and completely changing the tone. Now, some people would call that a tonal mess. I found it fun. To me, it was fun to watch. Like, you just knew that as soon as characters started having a funny conversation, people were going to die, and violently.
I wouldn't call it a tonal mess, but I do think that, I don't know, it worked and it didn't work for me. I think my favorite line of dialogue in the movie is these two cops are sitting in a car, and one of the cops is talking about this really great sandwich shop. And he offers a sandwich to his partner, and his partner he's packed a brownie for lunch. And the first cop says, that's like what a 5-year-old would pack for. That's what like a 5-year-old will do if he could pack his own lunch. Make his own lunch.
That's true.
And so I think it's little lines of dialogue like that are kind of funny, and it makes sense as in terms of natural characters and how they would still work in the world, because people in a real world situation would still like make jokes and stuff if they didn't realize what was happening during the night. So it felt very natural. But I think other times when you had kill scenes sandwiched by humor, it deflated the tension of those kill scenes.
No pun intended.
So,
but you know, it sounds like would have made that scene better is if it was John Glazer as one of the cops, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? There's a great grinder shop nearby."
So the thing is, I guess I don't really care about slasher movies. The slasher genre in general, it has never really appealed to me. And so these scenes, that are supposed to be tense, I don't really give a shit about the tension. All I care about is is how are they going to do this? Is it creative? And I think they found creative ways for Mike Myers to go about his yeah, I'm calling him Mike Myers. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, they found an interesting way for him to go about killing, and I think he
went crazy after the Cat in the Hat.
Yes.
What if instead of Michael Myers, it was Mike Myers in his Cat in the Hat makeup, running around killing people?
That sounds more horrific.
I think
I made a similar joke about the Cat in the Hat, where what if the cat was actually just Michael Myers
underneath all the makeup?
It would just be Michael. The movie would be re-edited to be Michael Myers, and it's the same movie except instead of the cat, it's just Michael Myers standing there. So the other character has
he just doesn't kill anyone. He just stands there.
Yeah,
it's just a fucking mannequin of Michael Myers.
That would be interesting.
Just the kids are bouncing dialogue off of this still figure.
Exactly.
It's very obvious that Danny McBride was one of the writers in this film, because there are moments that just feel like directly like lines you would have heard in Eastbound and Down.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought. Those sound like things he would say.
Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that the movie doesn't have its pluses. I think Jamie Lee Curtis's character was very interesting, and the relationship she had with her family was intriguing. I liked that angle.
Yeah, that was good. Judy Greer is always good.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of odd that the boyfriend that like the girl cheats, or the girl sees cheating on her. He just drops out of the movie. He never comes back, does he?
No, he doesn't. After the party scene, he's done. Which it would have been nice to see him get killed.
Yeah, or at least something.
But instead, this chubby, awkward friend of hers that likes her, he gets killed instead, and that felt kind of unfair. I guess
it did, especially because they made him out to be like this horrible human being. When they really did. They kind of treated him like scum, because they had him like there was the line of him like having flaky skin, and the fact that he thought maybe it would be an opportunity to try to kiss her, because he's clearly the friend zone kid.
Okay, PJ Souls is in this movie, but she does not. Okay, her character dies in the original Halloween.
Who's that?
PJ Souls. She's the girl that says "totally" all the time.
Yeah, she has a cameo, I guess, as one of the teachers.
Yeah, that's what I just read. Okay, because I heard that she was in this, and I was thinking, like, didn't she die in the first one?
Yeah. I totally did not notice it until after the fact.
Yeah.
I did like Omar Dorsey showing up as the sheriff character.
Yeah, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you guys this question: does the soundtrack have any good rock music on it, like Creed or Limp Bizkit or Kid Rock?
No, the soundtrack was all done by John Carpenter, and it's all excellent.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say like you ruined it.
I was joking, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say the end credits was Kid Rock doing a vocalization of the Halloween theme.
My favorite part is when Michael Myers went to the Godsmack concert.
He's just standing there listening to the music. People are moshing around him. He's just standing there kind of like looking around.
What's that famous song they did?
I don't know any of their songs.
Power Man 5000 I'm thinking of.
The Worlds Collide song?
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
That was Power Man 5000.
It occurs to me Michael Myers would probably be into shoegazing music.
What?
Yeah, probably.
Shoegazing music?
You've never heard of shoegaze?
Look at it's too big of a conversation to explain it right now.
Okay.
Just Google it.
I'll Google it later.
I feel like he would probably enjoy ABBA.
Oh God!
Hey, that'd be fun.
Well, I mean, isn't ABBA enjoyed by all serial killers? Let's be honest.
Well,
Yes.
Michael Myers is an interesting character because he just kills not out of instinct or necessarily or out of personal vendetta. He just kind of kills.
That's like I would argue that it's pure instinct without any passion. His instinct is just, hey, there's a person. I think I will kill him.
That's what I was getting. That's what I meant. Not instinct like animalistic. More instinct like this is his personal. This is the way his brain is wired. You know.
Although one of my favorite scenes in the movie involves he almost kills a baby, but then doesn't.
That was intriguing. To me, that felt kind of cheap because I doubt Michael Myers would do that. I think he would.
Yeah.
He would have killed that baby. The only reason they didn't was because if they had done that, I think it might have turned the audience against them.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good moment of tension.
Yes.
There were a couple moments where Michael Myers did spare somebody, which was weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Although I have to say my absolute favorite kill is, of course, the kind of kill that I always enjoy in movies, and that's I'm not gonna go into too much detail other than to say if you've seen American History X, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, curb stomp.
My favorite kill involved some motion lights.
Was I right? Was it a curb stomp?
Yeah, you're right.
You
More
guys,
pavement.
I do want to say, like, I'm completely fine with you guys talking spoilers. So
Yeah, me too. I'm okay with it.
All right, okay. So this scientist guy gets his head exploded by a shoe.
Yeah.
It sounds like the basketball death from fucking that Wes Craven movie where the girl turns into a
Deadly Friend.
Deadly Friend. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know what? You know
kind of like that.
You know in the Toxic Avenger, the scene where the head gets popped by a car and it's they
Yeah.
use
It's the
watermelon
kid.
for it.
It's the kid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's like a pumpkin getting stomped on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not birthday cake though, right? It's not like low blow.
Entirely Brawl on Cell Block 99.
Oh. Whoa, Zach.
You were talking to us. What? Oh, it's Zach. Okay.
That's me. Is it awful?
Yeah, the audio was pretty low. We could barely hear you.
Yes. Say something again.
Can you hear me now?
Are you using an onboard mic or do you have like a different microphone? Because maybe Google isn't registering that microphone.
That's probably it.
Click on the settings, the little gear icon.
Well, while we're waiting for him.
Does that sound any better?
Yeah, a little bit.
It
Yeah,
sounds a little better. I think that'll do.
there's a little tinny before.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was attempting to make an apparently very low volume joke about it being like the entirety of Brawl on Cell Block 99.
Oh God. Yeah.
There's more mess than Brawl and Cell Block 99.
Yeah, Brawl and Cell Block 99 is a little more like realistic with its curb stomp.
Yeah, this one is like.
Although I would say it's more disgusting in Brawl because you like see the skull crack and everything.
You see the jawbone shatter like porcelain.
Yeah, it's
form in every way, eyeballs pop, etc. Yeah, that was a horrific movie.
horrific but
movie.
amazing. I love it.
Actually, you know, I also really enjoyed the bathroom kill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's mostly because the two characters were the annoying investigative podcasters. And
Yeah, it's
they
like,
needed to
oh,
go.
I want to watch him get his shit fucked.
Yeah. Something about the investigative podcasts in particular annoy me, just because they treat it like they're such professionals, and they're not.
Yeah. So the element that worked the best for me in this movie is that Jamie Lee Curtis's character Laurie has spent the last 40 years being utterly traumatized by the events of the first movie, and she has spent all that time, you know, training herself to defend herself from Michael when he comes back. She's been armoring her house. She has been she's raised her daughter to have that same sort of situational awareness, which has caused a divide between them. And I think all that character stuff worked really, really well, especially because you don't see a whole lot of that kind of post-traumatic stress element in characters that survived slasher movies in the sequels.
Right. Yeah. I like that. It's a realistic approach to what happened. You know, she just completely went off her rocker and doubled down on her obsessiveness, you know?
Yeah. And so I was talking to Will earlier, and he mentioned that he felt like the movie was kind of working against itself in a way. Like the studio wanted to make one film, and David Gordon Green wanted to make another. But given that this is Blumhouse, that doesn't really happen that I know of. So
yeah, no, I don't. The only thing that would be working against it, because Blumhouse does follow the model of, you know, of paying things off, and so they probably, if there was any intervention, it would have been, you know, intervention to hit upon some specific elements of horror so that, you know, they could sell it internationally.
Well, I think what it was more of is David Gordon Green in an interview mentioned that they actually wrote the script to not have any comedy at all. And as they were filming, they allowed the actors to kind of give suggestions and input, and it ended up bringing this sort of naturalistic elements of comedy into it, like some lines that came across kind of funny, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Although I don't believe for a minute that they didn't write comedy into the script, because, like I said, there were lines that were right out of Eastbound and Down in it.
Well, it could have been something that they suggested while they were shooting. That's what I'm saying.
Perhaps.
And I think that's why this movie comes across as a little bit uneven to me. You know, one scene that David Gordon Green specifically mentioned is that Laurie's little emotional meltdown in the restaurant was originally going to be a lot more dramatic, with her like throwing stuff around and stuff. And then Jamie Lee Curtis went to him and said, I feel like this moment would work more if Laurie has more of an internal struggle where she just kind of breaks down emotionally. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he agreed with that. So I'm curious how much of stuff changed while they were filming it as opposed to, you know, being in the script, because a lot of parts of this film, like I said, still kind of work against themselves.
There is an element that feels kind of made up on the fly, I will say.
Yeah. I do know that David Gordon Green filmed multiple kill scenes for the characters. So such and such character getting killed in this way is going to get killed. He filmed that person getting killed in a couple different ways. So on the media release of this movie, those are all going to be on the disc release. So he says.
What I would like is multiple edits of the film. Just like...
Can I make a guess at the surprised ending?
The what?
At the surprise ending.
Okay, go ahead.
Is it Jake Gyllenhaal emerging from the weeds and killing Mike Myers, and then just the block letters "strongest" show up behind it, or?
No.
Oh, because of David Gordon, right? Okay.
Yeah. Also, Jake Gyllenhaal apparently was the one who convinced Jamie Lee Curtis to take the role.
Oh, really?
Come back on board, yeah. She's like his unofficial godson.
Oh.
Amazing. Okay, that was too deep. It was too deep and also terrible.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm kind of running out of things to say about Halloween. Do you have?
Well, I got something to ask you guys. Were you guys grossed out a little bit by the and I've only seen this in the trailers, but the bathroom scene that you guys were talking about earlier, where she's in the public bathroom and Michael Myers comes in and drops the teeth and everything. Were you guys grossed out by the fact that she's crawling on the floor of a toilet?
Nah, not really.
I mean, I know she has no choice in the matter. Like, if it was me, I would still be avoiding the germs while trying to fight off this bad guy.
That's interesting.
I would be like standing up or something. You know,
Would you just have like a snail trail of hand sanitizer or something?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You know,
I'm reminded of in Robert Rodriguez's Desperado. There's the scene, like one of the gunfights early in the movie. You see like the gangsters have their drug den that's hidden in the back of the bathroom, and in order to get into the secret door, you have to flush the toilet in this stall that is just caked in shit.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And it is like insane. It's like someone was eating birthday cake and went crazy.
What?
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it reminds that image alone reminds me of a toilet I had. It wasn't my toilet specifically, but originally it was my cousin's, and the room became my room after a while. We moved into this house that was originally my cousin's, and they never took care of anything in that house. And the toilet that ended up becoming my toilet, you could describe it in that way. I had to use like a razor. That's how bad the funk was on it. You know, so I had to basically scrape off the porcelain to get that stuff off. You know, I used gloves. I didn't just do it with my hand. You know, I used the proper.
Sledgehammer it and
yeah, right. I should have just lit it on fire. that would have taken care of it.
Just directly into the pipe. Just put a funnel there.
That's disgusting.
Keep it drinking water by the sink.
That's even fucking worse.
I'm just thinking, nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Just to be on the safe side, yeah. Speaking of orbit, we saw First Man. No,
did you see First Man, Zach?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then let's talk First Man real quick.
Hey, yeah, that's a good segue. All right, you guys can go for it.
Yeah. So what? First of all, Zach, what did you think of First Man?
Ugh.
I quite like First Man.
I know you have a thing for Ryan Gosling.
I have a thing for Ryan Gosling. He can have this butthole anytime he wants.
It's all right. I have a thing for Ryan Gosling too.
I mean, I'm not the only straight man that feels this way. I know it, but or am I? Somewhere on the Kinsey scale.
You want Gosling to be your power top?
Any way he wants it. But no. He does a spectacular job in this, in a somewhat thankless role, honestly. I think it's a role that's easy to not get what he's going for and not really understand how well he pulls off what he was trying to do and what Chazelle was trying to do with the film.
I do agree. I've heard a lot of people saying that his performance was too understated. I disagree. I think he hit upon what I think he was going for perfectly, and I think what he was going for had to be underplayed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a taciturn man. It was a man that was a bit of a mystery throughout his life. It's a man who refused to be pinned down to like one ideology or. He's kind of like this very stereotypical like 1950s like father who shows like no emotions, just pure repressed emotion sort of stuff. And the way that Gosling is able to show you the emotion through that repression, I think is really difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. I also got to give Claire Foy credit. Her performance is like the polar opposite. She is the nervous wreck that is made into an even more nervous wreck because her husband does not show any emotion towards her.
Yeah, or the kids.
Yeah.
And I mean,
there was a scene in one of the trailers. I think it was the first trailer that really stuck out to me. It was a juxtaposition between two sequences, two clips. The first clip was during a press conference where he said, "We're taking all the right precautionary measures," and then the next clip was him talking to his kids, and his kids are like, "Are you going to die?" And he's like, "We're taking all the right precautionary measures."
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, that's how he talks to his family?
Yes.
And I was like, that must be the point of his performance, is that this is the guy going on the moon, someone who doesn't really show love all that much, who doesn't really let on a.
Well, and the thing is that kind of repressed emotion and it in many ways it's why he was so well suited to be the commander of a space mission, because he keeps so cool under pressure.
Yeah, and I get that he follows the clock and down to the right time and everything, or whatever the phrase is. I can't think of it right now.
To the wire.
Yeah, to the wire. Oh no, I was going to say something about haircuts. Like you could
close shave.
No, it was a quote from The Simpsons. It was like, that's a haircut you could set your watch to, or something. Johnny Unitas or something. He was talking
that sounds like a line out of a film noir.
That sounds like what?
A line out of a film noir.
Yeah. It was a line. It was something Grandpa Simpson had said. But no, there was what I was.
I'm gonna say, being a big sciencey kind of guy interested in stuff like that, one thing that I found really hilarious about the film, and this had to have been a conscious choice, is that the third Apollo astronaut, Michael Collins, has like 2 lines in the entire fucking movie. It reminds me a lot of That Thing You Do, where the bass player it has no lines. He goes through the entire movie without saying a single word, and it's similar to that, where it's like Michael Collins is he's that forgotten astronaut just because he didn't get to walk on the moon. He was the guy in space who kept them from dying because he was the what do you call it? The support. Yeah, he was like the sober friend who was going to drive him home. Yeah, designated driver. Exactly.
Designated driver. Yes, that's what he was. He was the backup. And but I don't know. I think from what the trailers were suggesting, and from what you guys are saying about the movie, I got nothing against Neil Armstrong. The guy, went down in history, and America and all that. I think it was a great moment, but I would have liked a little bit more emotion, maybe, to the whole event. A little more romanticism. You know what I mean? Like maybe someone who's like in Contact.
To me,
she says they should have sent a poet.
The romanticism of the space program. If you want that, watch The Right Stuff. It's a great movie, and
I've seen The Right Stuff.
It'll give you all the romanticism you want.
I think kind of the point of it is he wasn't a poet. He was the most qualified man for the job, and
he was a pilot, a by the book pilot.
What I think is interesting is the thesis of the film in terms of describing the Apollo astronauts is, you're very right about Armstrong. He wasn't a poet, but then Buzz Aldrin, kind of a dick, and Michael Collins was barely there, or at least not noticed.
Which Buzz one Aldrin was on? I was going to say, which one was on The Simpsons? Was that Buzz Aldrin?
Probably.
Probably. Neil Armstrong was a very private person.
Buzz Aldrin ended up being probably the most present outspoken astronaut, because he's the one who, like I said, he's depicted in the film as kind of a dick. Like right after the Apollo 1 incident, where the 3 guys burned to death inside of the Apollo. The first scene you see with him after that, he's like, well, I guess that bumps us up in the program, right?
Oh God!
Do they ever sneak in a "Be careful, they're ruffled"?
That's from The Simpsons.
That's from The Simpsons.
Okay, gotcha.
Careful, they're ruffles.
Yeah, I haven't seen that episode for years, but yeah, I remember that.
It's where he's flying around, not flying around, but he's levitating in gravity, and he's like under zero gravity, and he's eating the ruffles, and then he bashes his head into the ant farm.
What I love about that episode is that the carbon rod gets the credit for saving the day.
Yeah. I think my favorite line in that whole episode, there were 2 lines. There was one from, who was the musician they got to play tunes for the astronauts as they were in space? It was James.
The guy, I've seen fire, I've seen rain.
Yeah, he's very folksy, he's got the,
James Taylor.
James Taylor, yeah. And he's like, hey, they brought me here to play music for you guys and you're going to fucking listen. He said something like that. He said something in a way. And then the other line was the other astronaut, the captain of the mission. He's like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to bring you to hell with me. He says to Homer, and then Homer grabs the carbon rod. He's like,
One more Michael Collins trivia piece, because this is something Leon may know, is that Jethro Tull wrote a song dedicated to Michael Collins.
I did not know that.
Oh.
Yeah, it was from their I believe second or third album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all about the sadness that it must be being the astronaut in the mission that no one talks about.
Buzz Aldrin has the cool name. Neil Armstrong was the guy that was picked to be the first one, and Michael Collins was the guy that he's just in the encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
fuck that guy. That's I feel that is the perfect guy to make a sad song about. If you think about it, if you do believe that space missions are kind of romantic in a way, or that it's a romantic idea to reach for the stars and stuff,
mm-hmm.
and this guy, while he achieved half of it, didn't exactly achieve the remainder, or was picked to do the remainder, that is very sad because he was so close. And then, okay.
Yeah, so the overall, I would say First Man it's a solid movie, a little overlong, I would say, but it mostly makes that up with a solid finale that picks up where the relative slowness of the middle it starts to sag a little bit.
Kind of like your review.
Exactly.
I
don't have much else to say about the movie. Do you have any closing thoughts, Zach?
Not particularly. I think it was one of the best of the year, but I wouldn't be holding it against you if you felt a little cold.
I like the movie. Don't get me wrong, and I really, really like the movie. It's not quite crossing over to love for me, but then I don't have the same thing for Ryan Gosling that you do.
Yeah.
Well, as a follow up to La La Land, where does this fit?
I think it's better than La La Land personally, but then I'm not the biggest fan of La La Land. I enjoyed it, but it's a movie that got the initial rush of enthusiasm I had towards it died off pretty quick.
Yeah, it was the same.
But I think Whiplash is still so far Damien's highlight.
I still have to see Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench, his first musical.
Yeah,
it's on Fandor. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll jump to Bad Times at the El Royale. So
that's what she said.
So I saw that, and you saw it as well, Hawk.
Yeah.
And Zach, you saw it.
Yep.
All right, so we'll give you the floor, Zach. What did you think of Bad Times at the El Royale?
Not a lot different than Hawk's review of it. Honestly, it's a film that there's a lot to admire. Drew Goddard is, to some extent, playing genre pastiche again, but here it's like thrillers and like Tarantino-esque thrillers and film noir a little bit.
Yeah,
but he does a really good job of taking the basic premise that's promised in the trailers. You have these strangers that are coming together in this unique location, and there's secrets and hidden motivations and all of that. Does just a cracker job sucking you in, and then it does feel a little bit like he didn't quite have an end point in mind, kind of like Lost, the TV series, where eventually you're like, oh, wait a minute, you didn't have it all planned out before, did you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the ending is, without going into too much detail, the ending is it's very simple, and it's almost comically simple.
Yeah,
how it ends up
basically, you tease I mean, the other thing is it isn't very surprising. Like, he sets it up, throughout the movie. There are surprising elements, but I did expect to be kind of shocked and awed a little more after all that setup. And a lot of it was just like, oh, this is kind of exactly what you'd expect to happen based on this
you're expecting some like huge pull of the rug, and you don't get that. The first half of the movie sets up a whole bunch of plot and character elements and character arcs and everything to culminate in something really huge. Whereas, like, oh, all these people were somehow meant to be brought together in this same place for some reason, and then
instead, it's quite the opposite. They were all there for completely different reasons.
Yeah, and then everybody, the climax is like, oh, okay, now they're here, and there's a bad guy, and there's a confrontation, and the movie ends. It just fizzles out completely in the third act.
So the movie isn't Identity with John Cusack.
It's not.
It's all inside a madman's head.
That's the thing. I heard someone say that they thought the movie was headed towards a this is actually hell kind of Twilight Zone twist.
Yeah, I would have liked that.
I think it would have been interesting, especially you could easily make that version of the film now, because the movie does end with like the building on fire.
Yeah.
So you could easily make Barton Fink it, so to speak. But
that's what she said.
Just cut in John Goodman on fire yelling, "Ah!" That should be in every movie, actually.
John Goodman on fire,
yelling while running at the camera.
Do you understand the life of the mind?
Yeah, it just feels barely undercooked in that regard, where like I think that I really hope that it doesn't get to the point where Drew Goddard is more of an ideas guy than he is an execution guy.
Well, that's the thing. The execution itself is fine. It's just the
I mean plot execution.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, no. As far as the look of the movie, like the production design is absolutely stellar. The look of the hotel is terrific. I think the
performances are all solid.
The performances are terrific.
Sharp dialogue.
The dialogue is really good. I think that John Hamm's monologue at the beginning is really, really good. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Chris Hemsworth gives a performance that I think ranks amongst his best, because he plays a character who you legitimately can see how people would follow him.
Yeah, his performance is really good. I think that Bill Pullman's son, what's his first name?
Lewis Pullman.
Lewis Pullman had the most surprising and exciting performance of the entire movie, I think.
Yep. That's kind of the one thing the trailer doesn't tell you.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's this bellboy played by...
Yeah. That was...
he just totally blows the lid off in his performance.
Bellboys in movies tend to be interesting. That's Tim Roth's character in Four Rooms is literally the only reason to watch Four Rooms.
Crispin Glover plays a great bellboy in Hot Tub Time Machine.
Yes, he does.
It's true. Another thing that might be the best thing about that movie.
I thought Jeff Bridges was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well,
all of the performances are great. I think Cynthia Erivo, who's kind of the one face you wouldn't recognize. I think she was a stage actress primarily. I think she's really good.
Yeah, she was good. I'm excited to see her in Widows later this year.
Yep.
You know what the movie... Here's what the movie is to me. Bad Times at the El Royale is like a really awesome drive to an ultimately boring location.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of great sights along the way. It's really excited. There's a lot of buildup, and and then you get there and it's just a tourist trap.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. The ride was worth it. The ride was worth it.
And you may even get sort of standard thrills from that tourist trap, even.
Sure.
Not like it's bad.
You can get some cheap knickknacks to pawn off on friends.
This is exactly what I thought it would
be. Yeah. Wall drug.
Yep.
South Dakota. If you don't know, Wall Drug, South Dakota is the tourist trap to end all tourist traps.
Entire reason for existence.
Yeah. You see signs all along the highway leading to Wall Drug saying things like "Wall drug, free ice water," and free coffee and donut for veterans. Come see the dinosaur.
The dinosaur?
Yes, they have a dinosaur that's robotic and roars at you. And yes, you could still get free ice water. It's basically just a gigantic gift shop that still has a drugstore built into it. And yeah, but look it up. There's the thing about Wall Drug is there's signs all over the world that they've like people have orchestrated. There's even a sign in Antarctica that says how many miles to get to Wall Drug. It's so anyway, Bad Times overall, I would watch it again. I think it's an entertaining movie to sit through. It's it may not be the best, it may not stick the landing perfectly, but it's the getting there that's fun.
I don't know if I'd watch it again. I felt kind of slighted by the fact that all this build-up amounted to nothing. Especially when you consider a minor twist with John Hamm's character, like that didn't really go to anything. It's like, oh, there's so much build up to all this really cool, profound stuff that like they're building up to this holy shit moment, and then all of a sudden, one character's side story elbows in and dominates the entire third act. That affects everybody else, and I kind of felt like this, I
can't help but feel the Jackie Brown effect in this, which is Jackie Brown is actually my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. But the first time I saw it, I thought that it was just kind of straightforward and didn't do anything too special. But every time I watch that movie, I'm watching it to watch the characters interact, and I think it is just so brilliantly written.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if I watch it again, I will get more out of it just watching the characters interact. And even knowing where things are going, just getting an idea of, observing that and not having to worry about the plot and just getting to know the characters.
Yeah.
Interested to kind of hear if it does end up that direction for you.
All right. So we've got that covered. Why don't we, let's see, we were going to end with Apostle, but before we do that, I know, Zach, you saw The Hate You Give, right?
Yep.
All right, well, then let's cover that real quick.
I think you might have liked it slightly better than me, although I did like it still.
All right, well, so I'll go ahead and start it off then. So The Hate You Give, directed by George Tillman Jr., is it's a drama that's basically about a high school student who lives in a very African American dominant suburb, which is kind of a slummy suburb with some nastier elements within it. Her parents are sort of, I would say, on the upswing financially to the point where you could almost call them upper middle class, but not enough that they can afford to send this girl to a private school that is predominantly white. But the movie begins with her explaining how she kind of lives in two worlds. There's the world of her school, which is very clean and sanitized, and she focuses on her studies. And then there's the world of home, where she has to be careful or guarded around everything. And it's kind of the irony is she can be guarded around everything from at home from the perspective of her having to fear for her own safety, but she feels more comfortable expressing herself amongst those people, versus at school she's more insulated, and while she's safer from say crime, she does not feel very comfortable interacting with too many people. So anyway, that is the opening of the film, and then she goes to a party one weekend, and the boy that she gets into a car with gets pulled over by the police, and the cop kills him on accident. Now,
What was the deal with the trailer scene where he is in one shot he's got his hands on the dash and his hands on the car when he's outside of it, and then he's like goofing around and grabs his hairbrush and gets shot?
So it's basically he had absolutely no reason to be pulled over. It's the typical thing. He was pulled over. He was DWB is what he was.
Driving while black. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's kind of being sarcastic about it, and he's treating it very lightly. He isn't thinking. He isn't thinking is the key, because knowing that cops like to pull over and harass African Americans, he probably should have been more guarded. But the thing is, I think the point the movie is making with that is, no, he shouldn't have to be guarded. It's bullshit that the cops are that hair triggery around people just because they happen to be of a different race. And he's trying to kind of act himself, and it ends up getting him killed, unfortunately. And so the rest of the film is her dealing with the fallout of this, of being the witness to a cop killing, and how she deals with it at home and how she deals with it at school. She gets to see how rich white kids deal with protest, which is they treat it like a party.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And then kind of who her true friends are. She's dating a white boy as well from the school.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how that relationship.
Which I have to say, to me, that's one of the highlights of the film, in that it could have gone very easily to the because the obvious dramatic choice would have been for her to realize that her white boyfriend just didn't truly understand her all of this time. That would have been way too easy to be the crux of the movie. But instead, they treat him like a legitimate boyfriend who cares about her, and he may be not, he may not know everything she goes through, but he wants to learn. He's interested in it. And
I will say the one thing that didn't quite work for me in that was how, like, there's kind of a climactic discussion, and he does literally say, "I don't see color," and I thought this was the point at which he was going to be sort of revealed as the completely oblivious asshole, but somehow that's spun as a positive. I think that's the thing. I was just like, I think with a more charismatic actor, you might be able to pull that off, but I was just like, oh.
That line was a bit of a groaner, I'll give you that. But that said, that wasn't the last scene he had where he says that was actually earlier on, and later in the film they get a little bit more he gets a little bit more to do. I think it's the scene that really wins it over is when she's headed to the big protest at the end, and the riot essentially, and the boyfriend does what I think is perfect boyfriend situation, which he just says, "What do you want me to do?" And she tells him, take the kid home, make sure he's safe.
Yeah,
because this is something she had to do for herself. I
mean, first off, I completely blanking on the actress's name. All of a sudden, what's her name?
Amanda Steinberg. Amanda Steinberg. Yeah.
Yep. So she was in Hunger Games.
Amanda always confuses me.
Yep. Yeah.
She was in Everything.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
It sucks. Don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I knew not to see it because it sucks. Yeah.
So go ahead. Yeah.
She's great. She's a star. She is going to be,
and her name in the movie is Star.
And her name in the movie is Star with 2 R's. But she does a really good job of kind of acting the sort of awakening that she has, kind of what her place in the world really is, what it means in a more complex world than she had ever really had to acknowledge, as you kind of set up so well, Ken, with your explanation of the 2 worlds she inhabits. I think that's the crux of the film, and I think that's what it does extremely well. I think it's a little more unwieldy in some other parts. It was a young adult novel, and there's still a little tinge of young adulty.
There is an after-school specialty aspect to some of the scenes in the movie, but I would say that kind of there isn't really a movie out there that really speaks to this exact situation as honestly as this movie. So I can forgive some of that the preachier elements.
And I mean, especially for like this age range and crowd. There's actually another film coming out later this year. Monsters and Gods? Is that what it's called? Gods and
Monsters and Men.
Gods and Monsters.
Gods and Monsters. Monsters and Men. Gods and Monsters.
James Whale deals with a race riot.
Yeah, exactly.
He just sees naked men.
Exactly.
Frankenstein does not like. He doesn't like the flaming sticks either in the mobs. But
oh right, because of Frankenstein.
Yeah. And Brendan Fraser comes back for some reason.
Oh, perfect. Monsters and Men looks good. Obviously, earlier this year we had Blind Spotting as well, which kind of touches on this subject. So it's definitely a zeitgeist subject that I think we're going to get explored more and more. But I think this film does a really good job of doing so. And
I think it does it in a way that is accessible to audiences that may not be able to go to a rated R film. So I got to give it credit for that. The young adult nature of the movie does, I think. Does a benefit because there are younger audiences who need to be educated on this sort of a topic.
Sure.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, and it does delve into some. So for every scene, like the kind of wonky, I don't see color scene, it does have some startlingly complex stuff as well.
Oh, yeah.
Common plays her uncle, who partially raised her while her father was in prison. Her father had gang ties, went to prison for Anthony Mackie, who's a gang lord of the area. There's a whole side subplot for that works to greater or lesser extent. But besides living in the largest house I think a cop can legally own, I don't know how the hell he can afford that on a cop salary unless there's a sequel in which he's also selling drugs.
It's a McMansion, though.
The real kingpin. It's a big one. But he has a discussion with her in this when they come to stay, because kind of running from the hood for a period. And it's all about how he reacts differently in exactly that, the pullover situations, and how cops are trained to sort of what sort of training they get and how they view the situation. It's very much from their perspective. And it was very interesting. He essentially admits that even he would approach the situation differently if it was like a white guy in a BMW, like a lawyer like dressed in a suit, versus somebody from her neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really really kind of, it kind of gets to a little bit of how this is such a difficult topic, because it's in reality a difficult topic. There's no real clear-cut right answer.
Right. On one hand, it's very easy to say, don't stereotype, everyone's brotherhood of man, everyone's the same. But the truth is, you do, there is a stark difference between how you feel if you're in a neighborhood that has a high crime rate and if you're in a neighborhood that doesn't. And it's understandable that stereotypes and that police would start to pick up behaviors like that, racially discriminatory behaviors, even if they're not racist per se. It's like it's almost classical conditioning. They're learned traits.
And it's kind of hard to even say where there's a difference between the two, right? It's what's so insidious about this, and why you see black cops that also end up in these horrific scenarios. as well. It's just ingrained, and it's such a hard thing to even possibly move past.
Right. Well, I think there's so much of a focus on calling the cops racist, and it's really not racism per se that is the problem. It's the fact, it's more of a social thing. When they perceive someone of being of a certain social class, it's very much class warfare.
Well, it's class and race, and where that all interacts. And obviously, I mean, you do have cops that put 15 bullets into somebody. I don't care who the fuck you are. That's not a reflex.
Yeah.
Versus
well, actually,
something like in this case, it's like 2.
Police are that's the thing. It's also a training thing. Police are taught that if they perceive a deadly threat, to basically empty their mag into it. That's part of police training.
Yeah. Mag doesn't hold 15 bullets.
You
don't reload again.
Actually, Glocks usually hold like 20 bullets. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Gun knowledge. Fun times.
Yay.
I don't know if it's just me. That kind of reminded me of the scene from Men in Black where Will Smith, instead of shooting the aliens, he shoots the little girl.
Oh, yeah, right. And he gives his reason.
She's walking around at 11 o'clock at night with quantum physics textbooks. Those books are way too advanced for her.
And it turns out he's right. That's exactly what they wanted him to find.
That was the test.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. Yeah. In fact, actually, Zach, I just typed in Glock in magazines.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's a very common police thing.
I was like, yeah, I guess it is 15. 15.
Yeah, 15 to 20, and they also have extended ones that.
Of course.
Now,
like here's a Glock drum magazine you can buy for $100, and it carries 100 rounds.
Let's not give police officers those.
And let me ask you this, Ken: is there a magazine called Glock Magazine?
There has to be. I mean, there's plenty of gun magazines. Just go to any grocery store.
Yeah, right. America.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Fuck
Don't get me wrong. I'm being honest. Guns are kind of cool. I mean
you've been taught that they're cool.
Have you ever shot one? Like,
no, and I don't think I'm well. To be honest, I'm queasy even around knives. Even butter knives, I'm queasy around.
I don't care who you are. If you get a chance to fire one, you will get a rush of like a power trip that is insane.
I'm sure there is like an adrenaline rush that comes with firing a bullet, even if it's under safe conditions. But that doesn't mean I suddenly find guns cool. You know, I mean, I don't know. Right. Maybe if I mean, yes, in movies and stuff, in film noir and everything, it's kind of a part of the character.
I don't own any firearms, and I don't.
No, I don't. I didn't think. But I did. But.
I do find the science that goes into them and everything really fascinating, and it's the one thing that people don't really want to acknowledge about the gun debate is that they're really super fun, and that's probably most of the reason why there's a lot of.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Yeah.
There is a YouTube channel I subscribe to that is There's a YouTube channel I subscribe to that's literally these guys who load different kinds of ammunition into shotguns that people suggest. Things like, put a Lego guy in a shotgun. See what happens when you fire it.
See, that's amusing, though. That's okay, because it's non-lethal, necessarily.
Well, I mean...
unless they get hurt doing it. Then,
they've also done some...
Which they might. Yeah.
Put a firecracker in a gun. See what happens.
Well, in one, the one that I found fascinating was... one of the many I found fascinating is they had a bunch of ball bearings that they poured melted wax all over it and then shoved it into a gun, and the result is it created this slug that when it hit the target it exploded with ball bearings shooting all over the place.
Oh no!
Sounds like a new category of Darwin Award to me. Waiting to happen.
That's the thing. Half of the reason I watch it is because one of these days these guys are going to kill themselves.
That's the reason to watch.
That's the reason to watch. It's not even pay-per-view. It's they uploaded it for free.
Well, hold on. I can't be alone in this. Anyone who watches NASCAR watches it specifically because they know someone's going to die in a horrible flaming car crash.
Not always. Not always. I mean, I think that they watch it for the actual driving sometimes.
Yeah,
I watch it to watch people turn left for 6 hours. Yeah, that.
I think some people actually do that. I think some people find it as a meditation type thing. Like they just have it on in the back. It's like golf.
Oh,
They just have it on. You know, it's like the Weather Channel.
Yeah.
Speaking
Or
of
what the Weather Channel used to be.
Speaking as someone who has a brother who loves golf, I find watching golf sadistic. It is just disgusting. It is the worst act of. God, it's a war crime. I fucking hate golf.
Fat white privileged jackasses hitting balls all day.
It's fun to play though.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to play. I prefer putt though.
Yeah,
because at least you get those crazy designs.
Or driving range.
Yeah, or driving range. That's
no
cool.
direction.
Yeah.
It's all about the golf cart and the cooler of beer on that golf cart. If you don't have those two things, fuck it.
Okay, so I guess that's what you give.
Good movie. It's a good movie.
So, Apostle.
Yes.
Tell us about Apostle.
Well, first off, Ken, your sound has changed.
Has it?
Oh,
No,
now it's regular. But at first, it sounded like you were talking through a megaphone.
It did.
It was like, oh, what all wall dogs? You know, it was like something like that. You know.
Okay.
But now it's okay, so you're good. But yes, Apostle. Hawk, you want to get into the intro?
Yeah, Apostle is the new Netflix movie from Gareth Evans, the director of The Raid and The Raid 2.
And the short film from VHS 2 featuring that crazy cult.
Yeah, Safe Haven.
Safe Haven, yeah.
So unlike the Raid movies, this is not an action flick. It is a cult movie. It's a horror flick. It takes place in the early 1900s, and it stars Dan Stevens as a recovering opioid addict who is his sister has been taken for ransom by this cult on a remote island, who I think they refuse to pay their taxes or something like that. And that doesn't matter as much as the fact that they have taken this guy's sister for ransom. And
because there's no harvest on their land anymore.
Yeah, there's no hires, so they're ransoming her for money to purchase crops. And he journeys to the island to infiltrate them under the guise of being a cult member and find his sister and get her out. So this stars Dan Stevens as the main character. It has Michael Sheen as the leader of the cult. Those are the two power players. And it has the gal from Sing Street playing a major role as well, which was a nice surprise. I can't remember what her name is.
I know who you're talking about.
Lucy Boynton.
Yes, Lucy Boynton, and she does a good job too. She's I would like to see her in more stuff because I really admire her as an actress.
What saddens me is that my favorite character in Sing Street is an actor who's gotten nothing but terrible roles since then.
Who?
The actor who plays the brother.
Oh, Jack Rayner?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's good.
What was his recent thing? Was that Kin? The Alien movie with the brother and the gun and all that?
Yeah.
James Franco was in it for some reason because his career's on the downswing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rayner, he keeps getting movies like that, or he was in he was in Detroit. He was good in that. And Free Fire, he was good in that too.
He was great in Free Fire, yeah.
I guess it's more of the bigger budget things. Like he's going to be in Mowgli, and that can't be good.
Mowgli looks like absolute shit. I'm sorry, Andy Serkis.
I feel so sorry for him.
Garbage.
Love Andy Serkis. Yes.
About 5 years ago, I heard Andy Serkis talk this up like it was his passion project that he's always wanted to do, and it's like,
doesn't he also want to do Animal Farm?
Now that would be interesting. I'd
be intrigued. His like Breathe the movie. So he has directed a film, Andrew Garfield, starring like.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he?
Movie that kind of looks like that Eddie Redmayne movie. Just any Eddie Redmayne movie.
Jupiter Ascending.
Eddie Redmayne the movie.
Eddie Redmayne the movie. Yeah, okay.
Every other Eddie Redmayne movie, but
Savage Grace. where he plays
I think
the son of a rich woman and has sex with her.
Isn't Mowgli coming to Netflix now?
I think it might be.
I believe they.
Yes,
I believe
It's
it
distributed
got,
by Netflix.
Wasn't
Yes.
it supposed to be like this big 3D
Theatrical.
experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, but fuck it, whatever.
Oh, it's okay. It says here that Netflix purchased the distribution rights from Warner Brothers. Oh boy.
Yeah,
So that
that's
means
not-
Warner Brothers wanted to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Netflix is like, people that don't want to leave the house will.
They do
Maybe
plan
watch this.
they do plan a 3D theatrical release though.
Oh, okay, so there's still, okay. But
It's
Apostle,
edited. Yeah.
So Apostle, I dug this movie. I can't say it was like I was really for starters, I was really excited to see it.
Yeah.
From the trailers, and even before the trailers, just the news that Gareth Evans was going to do a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
Or at least a different kind of story. And the movie still has that kind of gory, disturbing, visceral atmosphere to it, that his movies are known for. Even the Raid movies, which are, I mean, not even the Raid movies. The Raid movies are known for being ultra violent and intense, but there's also this musical element to it where it's almost like they're dancing to the score, but they're kicking the shit out of each other. In this movie, they're kind of. I don't know if it's like if I quite figured out the musical element to it. If the Raid movies are like a musical in the action sense, what is the musical equivalent in Apostle? I think Hawk, you came up with an answer to that.
Yeah, it's not the music so much as it is the visual element. Even though this is a slow burn horror, it does still have that same sense of energy and rhythm to it in terms of visuals and how it's shot. It's kind of got this. The Raid movies were more elongated, but this movie is still very much moments of mounting tensions, punctuated by explosions of violence. There are only a couple moments of violence in this movie, but all of them are just like this really, really almost unbearable, breathtaking buildup. When the violence does occur, it's kind of like geez. Like an exhale.
Yeah, you don't even really see a lot of the violence until the very end, when there's like an explosion of it. But it's almost like anticipation of violence, and then the aftermath of the violence. Like there is a sequence where a character is strapped into like a vice, and they basically turn this machine that's like a saw screw into his skull and basically penetrates his brain and kills him very slowly, very painfully too. That was very fucked up.
That was a nasty scene.
But we don't really see a lot of the machine going into the skull. We see it just barely penetrating the outer rim, and then after that, we see everyone else's reaction to it,
which is almost better.
Which is better, yeah. It's better cinematically and everything. It would be very disgusting just to see the literal mechanics of doing this.
Sure. We do see the aftermath, which is also literally disgusting.
And we see some of the aftermath. Yes, we do. In fact, we see the body disemboweled completely in the aftermath. And but that's later. That's like an aftermath sequence when we meet another character who is credited as being called the Grinder, which I love that name, the Grinder. He's got like a mask that he wears, and he's covered in blood and scars.
He's like a Pyramid Head from Silent Hill type character.
Right. He doesn't talk. He's just like a handyman kind of guy. But except the handyman stuff he does isn't fixing things. It's feeding things.
Without spoiling anything.
Without spoiling anything. I don't want to get into the spoilers so much, but this movie did remind me of another film called Begotten. If you guys have ever heard of Begotten, it's a movie by the guy who did the Shadow of a Vampire with Willem Dafoe.
Okay.
I forget his name. I think it's Elias something Merkin. Not Merkin. Mekis. I don't know, something like that. But that was a great movie. But Begotten, I watched it in my college days, and it's completely silent. There's no score, no dialogue, no nothing. It's just this grainy, dirty, film stock with images of what's supposed to be God disemboweling himself and giving birth to a new creation, which is supposed to be like Mother Nature or something. And then the movie is about following that character. So it starts off with God killing himself. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get into the specifics of this movie, but it does relate in terms of representation, you know, in terms of like symbolism and analogy, you know, like there are things that happen in this movie, especially towards the end, that made me think very heavily about Begotten and how Begotten started.
I described it as the Wicker Man on meth.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's almost like if you have ever read A Scanner Darkly or even seen the movie A Scanner Darkly, which follows the book very closely. There's a bit in there where one of the characters decides to kill himself, but he's going to do it by taking an overdose of a particular drug, which lets you hallucinate for years on end, or what feels like years on end. And his hallucination happens to be a guy with a bunch of eyeballs telling him all of his various sins over the years. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, that is a very boring, but also very disturbing death. It's boring in the sense that you have to live through this. Not boring for the audience. For the audience, it's weird. For the guy who's like there, he's just like, okay, I'm checking my watch. When am I gonna die?
How many times do I have to watch scenes of myself whacking off?
Right, exactly. It's like that, and but it kind of has that sense of humor, but it's also very macabre and serious too.
It's yeah, and that was one of the problems. One of the problems that I had with the movie. It's minor, but is that it just keeps stacking plot elements and ideas. Until it's kind of overstuffed and a little bit rickety.
It's a bit of a Bad Times at the El Royale issue, honestly.
A little
kind
bit,
of, but I do think that at the very least, Apostle explored everything that it set up, if not fully.
Yeah, and it's a lot more inventive in the denouement. Like there's a lot more going on.
There were two elements I really enjoyed. One was the you mentioned before, the photography, and my favorite shot of the movie was in the beginning when he's walking up the hill to get to the cult village, and he sees what looks like a cross, and then he sees multiple crosses, and he's thinking like, what the hell is this? Is this like a torture thing? Is this a religious thing? You know, what is this? Are these crucifixes? You know, what's the purpose? And then he gets above the hill. And it turns out they were like sails on a ship that was just there. So it's like it pulled the rug out from under you in kind of a funny way. Yeah. Like saying like these religious images are not really religious.
Yeah, there's definitely I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is. I think there's something the movie this movie is going for is something along the lines of the fallacy of faith or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there's definitely more to it than meets the eye, and the eye by the end of the movie has seen a lot of shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like a lot of shit. Like it's gone through war. You know, another element I really enjoyed was the the pure descent into madness that one of the three men who started the cult goes into, suffers from. It starts from a very heartbreaking point initially, but it's heartbreaking for a moment, and then it turns into a villainous deed, and then he just goes off the rails from there. Yeah, you know, like he starts blaming other people for shit, and then he does this, and then he does that, and then he's like, "I'm gonna make babies with you, and then sacrifice them, and I'm gonna do this and that." And I was like, "What?
Yeah,
you just snowballed, buddy. You just fucking, you know, went off the." It must be what happens to a person when they make one mistake, and then from then on, they panic and continue to make worse mistakes.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes from there.
And it goes from there. And there's no way to make it right. And everyone around you is like, dude, you are a dumpster fire right now. You know, I'm going to leave this island. You know, this is fucking crazy. Where's Michael Sheen? Where's him to bring sanity to this? You know, not just imagine if this was Michael Sheen in Twilight mode.
Yeah.
You know, that might. Yeah,
his performance was really good in this movie.
He was pretty stoic. He reminded me of Al Brooks in Drive. In the sense that he wasn't up to any real good, but it's like he didn't want to be up to no good. He had good intentions, but he ended up doing bad things.
Yeah, his arc is very subdued. He ends up ultimately being kind of a very weak man who's in over his head.
Yeah.
But he definitely knows how to put on a show for his followers.
Yeah. And we're really trying not to go into spoilers for this one. I think this movie works best if you watch it without knowing where exactly it goes towards the middle.
Yeah.
Because then that's when it just explodes and then becomes something else.
Yes.
The movie deals a little bit with lost faith. The main character, played by Dan Stevens, who is an addict now, explains that he was a missionary who tried bringing Catholicism to where was he bringing it to exactly?
Malaysia?
Yeah, he was
probably
bringing it to
Indonesia, just because of the Gareth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think he says something like that.
I got real Silence vibes from that.
Yeah,
that's what. But it was a lot more violent, that particular sequence when he was recounting what happened. However, it's a different kind of violence. In Silence, it was violent, probably more violent in Silence, like some of the torturous sequences, when Adam Driver walks himself into the ocean and dies, or when those men are crucified and the ocean waters are hitting them. You know, those were probably more violent from an emotional standpoint. This missionary sequence is more violent from just a visceral sequence, standpoint.
And that was probably my favorite shot in the movie. It's in the trailer where you have
the fire against the cross and the camera twisting so the cross goes from upside down to right side up as he's getting dragged towards it. Yeah, that was a very good shot. But he's explaining that he used to be a man of faith and he really wanted to make a difference with his religion and spread it around. And that was more than likely a mistake, not just because it was a mistake, but also, it's just not, missionary work isn't necessarily, it's kind of 50-50, yes, you're technically doing good, but you're also being way too preachy about it. In his case anyways. I don't know about modern day missionaries, but and I'm not saying he deserved his fate or whatever. I'm saying maybe he went about it the wrong way, but he had good intentions, which intent is always irrelevant usually, but it's still an important factor. And so that explains why he's like this rugged addict who's sarcastic to everyone. And that's what I love too. He's supposed to be this he's supposed to be blending in with this village, but he's acting like a dick to everybody.
And he's got like this, Dan Stevens just has resting crazy eyes.
Yeah, he's got this stare. He just looks into everyone's soul, like you're a dick. Like
that's why I love Dan Stevens. He's such an intense actor.
Yes, he's like, oh yeah, well why don't you just leave me the hell alone? I'm like, and the other guy's like, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, sir. And Dan Stevens quickly is like, oh, right, I'm supposed to be a villager on this island. Yeah. I'm supposed to be blending in, not pissing people off.
I think that was part of his character too. Like he's an extreme person. He's withdrawing from opioids.
So he's got to deal with that too, right? And
I think he.
Whoa.
Now you have to answer it, Zach.
Yeah, currently I do. 1 second. I'm doing too many things at once.
Oh, jeez.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, I'm happy with my phone service. Why do you ask?
It was. I lost. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is when he suddenly like renounces his addiction. Where he's in a moment of stress, and the soundtrack has this rapid like clicking noise, and it just builds and builds and builds, and he's unscrewing the cap to the bottle, and then he just chucks it across the room and throws himself on the floor. Like that was a really quick an emotional. It's a quick and dirty, emotionally intense movie or scene
sequence.
For his character progression.
It was very good. It was very good. He was very good in it. And as most movies are about men of faith who then lose their faith and then go through like a discovery about themselves a little bit, he does ultimately like gain something out of this experience, but the movie does it in such a fountain kind of way. Darren Aronofsky's Fountain, almost literally and figuratively. Literally because it matches almost exactly what happens in a particular scene in the fountain. I'm not going to give many more specifics than that, but also figuratively because he does kind of become one with whatever entity or you want to call that's beyond religion, that's in religion, God or whatever, and it's very interesting. The movie does have something it's trying to express and say.
It gives you a lot to think about.
It gives you a lot to chew on, that particular ending, because it just ends with that. It cuts immediately to Gareth Evans, directed by Gareth Evans. Like it's just a hard cut. It's like whatever's happening is happening, and then Gareth Evans. And I was like, whoa, that's another thing too with these Netflix movies. They start very quickly, don't they? It's like Netflix cares not for opening credits.
Well, it had opening credits.
It had opening credits, but they go through them so quickly.
I think that's more of a modern Hollywood thing than it is anything else. Because this wasn't like a Netflix commissioned this film, nor did they pick it up after it was done. It was kind of like Gareth Evans is writing this new movie about this and that, and then Netflix ends up being the distributor that buys the rights.
Okay, I see what you're saying, but it's just a pattern I've noticed with a lot of Netflix movies where it does the boom, boom, the Netflix logo, and then it immediately goes into the opening credits. There's no time to breathe. It's just boom, you're in the movie, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, from there the pace is fine, but I was just kind of like, I'm noticing a pattern, But yes, Apostle, very good movie. It's kind of interesting that I watched Cannibal a couple days later, which I watched last night, actually, in the middle of the night. I watched Cannibal. We were talking about this before the broadcast. I watched a movie called Cannibal. It's a documentary about a very infamous cannibal in Japan. I think he only had one incident in which he ate someone. That we know of, but he became famous for it because he ate someone and he escaped that conviction. He got arrested, but he didn't get convicted for it, and he was declared insane and couldn't stand trial. And then he went on to have a career as a writer and as a food critic, even, and stuff like that. The movie, however, doesn't get into those career choices. The movie's stuck solely on him. Like his face and his room that he lives in and his brother and his family. And it's a very, very personal movie. And it kind of forces you to identify with this guy in some way. But Apostle, now that I'm thinking of it, it makes for an odd double feature where one movie is about how could this world birth this guy? And the other movie is, what is God, and is there a God, and what exactly is the nature of our lives on this planet? And also the horrors that exist within it. Both movies are kind of covered the same ground, but in different ways. I want to say, and Apostle is much more. It's not an action movie, but by comparison to Cannibal, it is an action movie because there's action happening. Cannibal is very slow moving and just kind of stuck on extreme close-ups, but they're both getting at very similar things. I would say this movie is much more visually expressive, whereas Cannibal is very restrictive. It's restrictive with purpose, but I'm just saying the palette for visual expression is a lot more focused and limited, whereas in this movie it's more grand and big, and let's really fill the frame up and put crazy shit in there, which is good. That's it's a movie. It's got to have crazy shit in it, right? You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to have crazy shit in it, but if you're going to make a movie like this, you might as well go nuts. And, and they do.
They did.
So-
yeah, I'm really excited. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really excited for whatever Gareth Evans has next up his sleeve.
Yeah, same thing.
I'm a big fan of his work. I think his work on VHS2 is kind of underrated a little bit. I don't hear much about it, and no one really talks about that movie. But I think that movie had a lot of really good short segments in it.
Yeah.
Specifically, not just from Evans, but also from Adam Wingard, who starred in his own version, his own little short. And then from Jason Eisner, that was my favorite, the alien abduction sequence.
Yeah.
That was fucking nuts. But Evans is pretty versatile. I think even within his genre exploits, he's very versatile. I think he can make anything he wants, really.
Yeah, and this definitely did feel like a Gareth Evans movie, even though it wasn't an Indonesian martial arts film.
Yeah.
Because he's got his style and rhythm and feel to all of his movies. So I'm really curious to see what he's going to do next.
I like how you assume that a Welsh director is shoehorned into Asian martial arts films.
Well,
What do you
yeah, but
mean?
he did.
Well,
he
you said
wasn't-
even though it's a non-Asian martial arts,
he was known for doing those Indonesian.
Yeah,
and
because
even-
right.
that's all he's done so far.
And
Right,
even that
well-
short film from VHS2 was Indonesian, or at least had Indonesian actors.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, this, despite this not being an action film, it still has his signature.
Mhm.
Yes, it's got his
It has his
trademark,
fingerprints on it.
Yeah, very much.
It's tense. It's icky at some points. It really kind of sucks you in.
It's got great effects too. I mean, there's hardly if there are digital blood effects, I couldn't really spot them.
Yeah,
It looked really like practical,
yeah.
So that I appreciated very much. I think it makes it look and feel like what's happening is happening. Of course, we know it's not, but still, it makes it all the better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds like I've got another movie I need to see soon.
Someone on Twitter took to. I think we made this joke on the Facebook chat, was that people wanting to see the Robert Duvall Apostle are going to be awfully surprised this weekend.
Oh God.
And I was like, who out there wanting to see that movie again?
I've never seen.
I mean,
but
I heard it's a good
things.
movie. He was nominated for an Oscar for it, but
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, after all these years,
There's probably one old person who's like, I remember that.
yeah, right. They're like, well, that's an odd looking poster for it, but I remember that movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's a guy in front of a burning cross. That's got to be the Robert Duvall film, right? He doesn't look like Duvall, but maybe he's a younger version of him. Dan Stevens as the younger Robert Duvall. It's two very distinct individuals.
Robert Duvall has been old forever.
Now,
Yeah.
well,
when he was young.
even in To Kill a Mockingbird, he was pretty old, wasn't he? He at least had an old stature about him.
He definitely looked old. Yeah.
Yeah. What a great movie that was, huh? To Kill a Mockingbird. That was great.
Yeah.